Hey, what's up, fight fans? Will back once again for another fight card prediction. We're going to be breaking down UFC Fight Night 126, Cowboy versus Medeiros from the Frank Erwin Center in Austin, Texas. Coming off UFC 221 last week, Romero got the job done. I was really happy there. I got that prediction pretty much spot on, which doesn't happen all that often, but when it does, it's nice. So I'll take the plaudits for that one. Had a really good night in DraftKings. If you didn't see on Twitter, I went away with a couple of wins and a couple of GPP, so I won some money, which is awesome. Continuing my good start in DraftKings along with my picks and my bets for this year, which is nice. So just trying to keep it going. I know it doesn't always last forever, so just enjoying it while I'm still ahead. As always, thank you to all the new subscribers. 2,000 was the goal. We're well on our way there. We're over 1,700 now. We just need to keep going. And then once we get to 2,000, we can maybe push on and see what we can raise for the rest of the year. So, as always, thank you so much. But yeah, 221 was a fairly decent card. My most confident pick was Li Jingliang, and Jake Matthews showed up. Fair play to the guy. And I was really chuffed with the Romero prediction. I've seen a lot of people writing him off, saying he had an injury. I bet him at plus 150. I just didn't see there was too much value on that price to not bet it, so glad he got the job done. Overall for this card, I think this is a solid card. It's on Sunday, not Saturday, guys, so remember that. Solid fights throughout the card. Some toss-up fights I'm struggling with. I have been for the last kind of couple of days, going between some fights, but overall it's a really, really solid fight card. I've got my UFC Pick'em League there. If you still want to join, come ahead. I'm doing really well. I think I'm number 11 in the UFC Pick'em, and there's one guy ahead of me. I'm not sure you're TG Dillashaw. If you're on there, shout me, let me know who you are, because you're doing awesome this year, because I thought I've done really well, but you're 500-600 points ahead of me there, so props to you. And just as always, thanks for the great comments down below, and the great analysis that some of you did last week was awesome. Went 10-2, just need to keep the hot start going. So we're getting started in this one in the middleweight division with Oskar Piechota against Tim Williams. Tim Williams, you might have known this guy from tough season a few years back. Beat Bojan Velikovic on there and then lost to Diego Lima, got caught in a rear naked choke. Making his UFC debut here, official UFC debut, and I can't say I'm the biggest fan of what I've seen. I don't think he's great. I think he's a grinder. I think he's serviceable in kind of all areas. I think when it comes to the feet in this one, I think Oskar has him beat. I think he is the better striker, and he can piece him up on the feet there. I think that Tim is going to want to use his wrestling, his grappling, grind this fight, put him against the cage. Personally, I think Oskar can out-wrestle the wrestler. I think both guys are Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts, where I think that Oskar comes from the more kind of well-known black belt from Robert Drysdale, who's a world-renowned kind of jiu-jitsu specialist, coach, fought in the UFC himself before getting popped for something. So, yeah, I think where this fight is going to take place, I think Oskar's going to pretty much boss it in the feet, where Tim is going to want to get to the clinch and look to tie up Piechota here. And I just don't see it happening. I think that wherever this fight goes, Oskar will have an advantage. I think this guy's a sleeper. I think he's going to have a good 2018. I think he's going to be kind of like that Krzysztof Jotko that comes through and wins fights that people don't really expect him to win, like against decent guys. I like him a lot. I like him in this fight. I think he can, like I say, controls it on the feet. I think he's strong enough to not get taken down and kind of kept there, because I think Tim Williams will just want to lie there, blanket him, and win the fight from there. I don't see it happening. I think Oskar is just the better fighter across the board. I think he's a little unheralded. We know him over here in Europe a little bit better because he was the Cage Warriors champion, where he beat Jason Radcliffe. Obviously beat Jonathan Wilson in his debut, where he just kind of won the striking advantage, managed to get the back, get a couple of takedowns, nearly got the choke in round one. I think that he could potentially stop Tim Williams here via submission. I'm going to pick him via decision. I think that Williams will have enough to kind of stop from getting submitted. I just don't think Tim Williams is going to outgrind Oskar Piechota here. I think that Oskar is just the far better fighter, in my opinion, from what I'm seeing right now. But it could be a little bit back and forth, but I think Oskar is just a little bit better in all facets of the game. Full-time fighter who's training all the time over a guy who's working 40 to 50 hours and then working on training on top of that as well. So Oskar Piechota, I'm going to go via decision. Welterweight fight, Alex Morono against Josh Burkman. Really surprised to see Josh Burkman still fighting in the UFC. He's coming off 4 straight losses. I thought he retired after his last fight, but obviously I was wrong, and the UFC kept him around, which was really weird. Got knocked out in the first round against Drew Dober, got submitted in the first round against Michel Prazeres, lost to Zach Otto, lost to Paul Felder. His last win was 2016 against KJ Noons, who has since retired. Solid veteran, but I definitely think the guy is on the decline here, and this is a fight for Alex Morono to get back on the winning cycle here after losing last time out to Keita Nakamura. Very aggressive on the feet, throws a lot of heavy hands, and it's just a serviceable pro. Decent in all areas. I think he throws heavy leather. I think that Burkman's kind of slowed down a bit to where he's going to get hit with one of these shots, and I think he's going to get put out by Alex Morono. If Josh Burkman won this fight, I would be really surprised. I just don't see. I think that the pressure that Alex Morono can bring can break Burkman. Can Burkman take him down and control him? Maybe. I don't really see it. I think that Alex Morono eventually is just going to push the pace that little bit too much, that where he just kind of wears Burkman out and he catches him with a shot. So not a fight I've looked into too much. I watched a couple of fights of both guys. I just think that Morono, this is a fight that he can exceed in, he can win. He's in Texas, he'll be fighting in front of friends and family. So I'm going to take Alex Morono there. Probably get a TKO victory in round number 2. Moving on to the featured fight of the UFC Fight Pass Prelims. Steven Peterson against Brandon Davis. This was supposed to be Humberto Bandone that was supposed to be fighting Peterson, and it was a fight I looked into a little bit from the Bandone side and the Peterson side, but Bandone had visa issues. Brandon Davis, who fought at UFC 220 like 3 weeks ago, steps in here now. He went into that fight against Kyle Bochniak with an injured hip, I believe it was, and I don't think in 3 weeks that's going to clear up. I really don't. Now, he fought through it, and he could have ultimately won that fight if it wasn't in Boston. I think that it was a very close fight. Bochniak kind of didn't. He said he was going to be aggressive and was far from it. And he won the decision, kind of keeping outside and popping shots, had a few takedowns. I kind of see that being a little bit like that here. I think Peterson's definitely more aggressive than what Bochniak is, and it's more in your face. He's not going to run away from the fight like Bochniak did there. Bochniak was kind of fighting for his job, so I could see why he did that. But Peterson, to me, is just an aggressive fighter. I think he's got a lot of control. He can take you down and control you. Brandon Davis is kind of more of a Muay Thai guy. He trains Muay Thai with Alan Belcher, Jason Knight in that gym down there in Mississippi. Steven Peterson, I thought, was really unlucky to lose that decision to Benito Lopez on the Dana White show, but he's got his opportunity here to come in and fight in front of his friends and family again with a short notice guy. I think on the feet, Brandon Davis is going to win established distance. I think he did that in like the Austin Arnett fight, and his striking looked really good. And I think he's going to want to try and do that here. Steven Peterson, on the other hand, I think is going to want to rush forward, try and get maybe into the clinch, get a body lock and get a takedown, and try and do that. I think he's a fairly decent fighter. He's had some losses in there. He's went 4 rounds, I think it is, a couple of times. So he can go hard for that 15 minutes as well. Takes a bit of damage, which I've seen in some of his fights. It's all depending what Davis's game plan is. I think if he fights at distance, he could maybe pick off Peterson a little bit. But that injury is a bit of a red flag to me. I had Brett Apley on Twitter, asked him, is he ready to go? And he says, yeah, I'm good enough for this fight. That just doesn't sound... I'm just not 100% sure on that. Like 3 weeks, a hip injury shows up and like disappears that quick. It's just... I'm not sure. This is a 50-50 fight. I'm not confident in the pick, if I'm being honest with you. I think this might be one I like to look at DraftKings because depending who the dog is, I think they can accumulate points maybe. But I'm going to go with Steven Peterson. I think he can get takedowns. I do think he takes some damage though. I'm going to pick him via a very close split decision win here for Steven Peterson, but honestly I've been going back and forward in that pick a little bit because I think Brandon Davis is fairly serviceable in the feet, can fight at distance really well, but I think Peterson will give him, I think he will give Peterson opportunities to garner takedowns, get the fight to the mat and ultimately win rounds through that. So that's kind of how I'm seeing that fight going, but not overly confident. Steven Peterson via a split decision. Going into the women's bantamweight division with Sarah Moras facing off against Lucie Pudilova. I'm not a fan of what I see out of Sarah Moras. I think she's a girl that's improving slightly, but I still think she's not that good. She's just not that good when I watch her. She has got some nasty BJJ though, and it's something that you have to be wary of. That fight with Ashley Evans-Smith, she got taken down, she got a hold of that arm and she just kept a grasp of that arm. Ashley Evans-Smith got back to her feet, decided to go back into the guard, kind of got caught in the armbar, and then she dislocated the elbow of Ashley Evans-Smith. She doesn't really offer much in the feet. Interviews that I've watched, she's saying she's wanting to show off her striking and she wants to do that. I think she'll do that for so long and then she wants to try and find a way to get this fight to the mat. That's just her fight is going to want to be on the mat, where I think she's quite a heavy girl. She's got big hips. If she can get a hold of your any kind of limb, she can tear it off and hurt you like she did in the Ashley Evans-Smith. I think Lucie Pudilova has definitely an advantage on the feet. I think she's more output. She's a pretty accurate fighter. That fight with Lena Landsberg, I thought she won that fight against Lena Landsberg, if I'm being 100% honest with you. Then she rebounded with that win over Ji Young Kim over there in Korea, I think it was at the time, or China it might have been actually. So it's a fight with two girls that I don't think are great. One's a stand-up fighter in Pudilova, and the other one is Moras, who is, she says she's got striking, but I think she's more of a jiu-jitsu girl and trying to get the fight down there. I think she'll try and look to get this into clinch and look to get it there. I just don't think she'll want to stay in the feet. I don't think she's good enough to kind of be with Lucie Pudilova, and Pudilova's not that good on the feet, but she's far better than what Sarah Moras is. An interview I just watched there, she wishes the 145 pound weight division was open. James Lynch did a whole bunch of interviews with fighters on this card, so if you get an opportunity, go and check those out. I watched Brandon Davis, I watched Jeff Neal, I watched James Vick, Sarah Moras one as well, so there's definitely guys there that you should go and watch. It's just little insights I always watch before the fights. Ultimately, I think Lucie Pudilova can put it on her, and as long as she can keep her back off the mat, I think that she will win the fight. She will just outwork her and will ultimately put a beating on her like she did with Lena Landsberg. But Moras is a big girl who, if she gets a hold of her, gets her to the ground, can definitely submit her and control her from there. So I can't say I'm confident in the pick, but I'm going to pick Lucie Pudilova via decision. I think she uses the striking to win at least 2 of the rounds and win the fight from there. But close fight again. But I'm picking Pudilova via decision. Moving on, flyweight division with Roberto Sanchez against Joby Sanchez. Another close, interesting fight. Joby Sanchez, this is his second run in the UFC. He fought a couple of times on the Dana White Tuesday Night Contender Series. Won his first fight, didn't really look overly impressive there. Came back against JP Buys, got taken down a couple of times and got controlled, but Buys absolutely gassed himself out, and against a guy, a veteran actually, in Joby Sanchez, you can't do that. Comes from a really talented, good gym in Jackson Winklejohn down in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and it's just a really solid pro. There's nothing that stands out about him. He's decent striking, decent grappling. Has been knocked out before. Gian Herrera knocked him out in his first UFC stint. So he's getting another opportunity in the UFC here. Hopefully it'll go a lot better than it did the first time around. I mean, his probably standout win was over Tategi Matsuda That's his only win, in fact, taking Matsuda, with 2 losses to Wilson Hayes and Gian Herrera. Herrera's not that good, but Hayes has turned out to be a really, really solid top 10 flyweight without a doubt. Went back out the regional scenes, won some fights in New Mexico. And then obviously he beat Manny Vasquez, is a guy I quite like. I think he's a decent fighter on that show, and then went and beat JP Baez via TKO in the second round. So yeah, Roberto Sanchez, second fight in the UFC, coming off that loss to Joseph Bopo Morales. Started off the fight really well. This guy looks for takedowns and genuinely gets them, and he can control you down there. That's where he's going to want to take this fight. Now, like I was saying, JP Baez took him down. I think that Roberto Sanchez is a far better grappler than what that kid from South Africa is, and I think he will get takedowns. Now, it's whether he can keep Joby down there long enough to win the rounds, which is a little bit concerning for me. On the feet, I don't think he offers very much. I think that Joby probably has a slight advantage there, albeit not that much. We saw that in the fight with Morales, where he took him down pretty quickly, and then once Morales got back to his feet, he got sniped with a 1-2 that put him down, and then just got beaten up from there. So close fight, very close fight, coin flip fight for me. It's the veteran savviness of Joby Sanchez against Roberto, who I think can outwork him a little bit and get takedowns, but I just see it being really close. I'm going to go with, when I initially first saw the fight, I thought Roberto Sanchez was going to win, Little Fury was going to win. I'm going to stick with that. I think he wins through his wrestling, his takedowns. I think he gets a few early on. I think round 2 could be close, and round 3, once Joby Sanchez a little bit more worn out, I think he can get takedowns and win that fight. But it's a close fight. I'm not overly confident in Roberto Sanchez, but I'm going to pick him to win this fight here. Moving on, Brian Camozzi against Geoff Neal. Brian Camozzi back against the wall. 2 losses in a row, 2 knockout losses in a row, where he lost to Randy Rudeboy Brown, and he lost to Charles Laprise, where he got knocked out in the 3rd round there at UFC 213. Just not a great fighter. Not a great fighter at all. Dangerous in the clinch. He's kind of got that long distance game, but he doesn't really use it to his advantage. Decent on the ground for the reasons that he's very long, very lanky. He can catch you in submissions if you put yourself out of position, like he did against Tyler Milner. Like he caught that nice guillotine against Nick Barnes. But since he's come into the UFC, he's not looked good. Back against the wall, so he's fighting for his job here. But I just don't think he's a great pro. I think this is not his level. But he's against a guy here who I actually really like. I think Geoff Neal's a very, very solid pro. I saw him in the Dana White series, where he knocked out Chase Walden, I think it was. Got taken down early, but came back up and caught the guy with a beautiful, I think it was a straight left, and followed it up and got the contract there. That was his second fight in I think a week. He fought in the LFA, I think it was, before that, and won that fight. And I watched his fight with Kevin Holland, who's a kind of flashy guy, signed to Bellator. The guys were calling him in that video like the next John Jones, and better than John Jones and Anderson Silva, this and that. Very cocky fighter, throws a lot of spin attacks, a lot of flashy attacks, talks a lot of shit. But Geoff Neal was winning that fight before getting taken out in the 3rd round. He just got caught with a shot, and in MMA that can happen. I struggle to see where Brian Camozzi really wins this fight here. I think the pressure, that was at middleweight as well, let me say, where this is at Neal's natural weight class of welterweight. I think Geoff Neal's pressure and his striking is going to be too much for Brian Camozzi, and I think eventually he lands shots on him here. I think he can control him against the cage as well. I think he can take him down if needs be. But I think if he wants to win this fight convincingly, he keeps on the feet, he pieces this guy up. Just be careful when he gets into the clinch, because Camozzi has got long limbs, he's got dangerous knees, and we have seen it in his fights before the UFC that he is very, very dangerous with those knees. I just see Geoff Neal catching him with a shot and putting him to sleep in this one here. I'm going to go a 2nd round TQ victory there for Geoff Neal. I think in the 1st round he establishes his striking, probably hits him with a few big shots, but I think the second round is when he finds that shot and he takes him out there. So Geoff, Neal, TKO, round number 2. This is the fight I'm really looking forward to. Jared Green against the returning Carlos Diego Ferreira. Jared Green, buzzsaw. That's a word for him really here. Non-stop action, paced fighter who just goes for it, doesn't stop, doesn't give in. I thought that fight with Hakran Diaz should have really been stopped, if I'm being honest with you. He buzzsawed through a legit veteran who's tough, gritty, and just put an absolute beating. The first round was kind of close, then he just absolutely wiped the floor with Hakran Diaz. And I mean, he initially came into UFC, he was going to go to the featherweight division, I should say. Missed weight there, but still put an absolute beating on Michel Quinones and got the second round TKO victory there. The one thing with this guy, he's been through some like horrible life experiences that he did to himself, so he's been on death's door pretty much, and his story is absolutely incredible. If you go back and listen, I think he was on the MMA Hour last week. Incredible story, and the guy's come into UFC and he's just been an absolute buzzsaw. Love the fact that he's at 155. He is undersized for that, but that pace and pressure is going to help him a lot against a lot of fighters in this division. I still think he's a natural 145er, but if he's having struggles making that weight, then he has to be at 155. The returning Carlos Diego Ferreira, this the guy. I'm a fan of this guy. I really liked him a few years ago. Now he's had a 2-year break, USADA suspension, I should say. He got caught, he popped for something, took his ban, and now he's back. Big fan of this guy. A really dangerous jiu-jitsu guy, but very aggressive on the feet as well. Came in and he faced, I think it was Colton Smith, faced Ramsey in the gym, finished them with aplomb. Very early on, I think it was the first round against Colton Smith, and then he TKO'd Ramsey in the gym. I can't remember, it might have been late in the third, maybe in the set, I can't really remember. I remember watching that a couple of days ago. And then lost to 2 legit guys, Beneil Dariush, and then he got knocked out by Dustin Poirier. Dustin Poirier just really ate through him. But then he followed that up with a really, really nice win over Olivier Aubin-Mercier, who I think is a top, has the potential to be a top guy at 155. Love his style, very aggressive, wherever the fight goes. I just don't think he's going to... I think it's a horrible fight to come back to, personally. Yeah, I just think it's a bad fight to come back to with the pace that Jared Gordon puts on folks. And I think he has to mind his P's and Q's when he goes to the ground, because Ferreira will look for submissions. He is very aggressive, very dangerous down on the floor, on the mat with that. But I just think this is a tough matchup for him. But I'm not ruling out Carlos Diego Ferreira. I just think that the ring rust will be a little bit evident, and I think against a guy like Jared Gordon, it's just not going to be a good night for him. So I see pretty much not like a beatdown, but I've seen it being fairly comprehensive for Jared Gordon going on and winning this fight here. So Jared Gordon, I'm going to pick him via decision, 30-27, and this will be a big win for him moving forward in the division. But I'm not... Maybe 30-27's been a little bit too much. Maybe 29-28. Maybe Ferreira can get a round off him here, because we've still got to learn a little bit about Jared Gordon. But Jared Gordon, I think, will be one of my more confident plays on the card. I believe, just from what I've seen. The guy's a buzzsaw. Moving on to the main card now. One of those fights from the prelims might actually jump up here, because Jessica Aguilar against Livia Souza. I was going to go big on Livia Souza. Looks like it's been rescheduled for UFC 222. So one of those fights from the prelims or the early Fight Pass prelims might jump on the main card here. So, but we're starting off in the lightweight division with Super Sage Northcutt against Thibault Gouti. Last time I picked against Sage Northcutt, I thought someone like Quinones could give him problems. Turned out that really wasn't the case, and it was a bad pick on my part from that. Faded. I think there is times you can fade Sage Northcutt, personally. I forgot to turn in the battery for this. 1 second, guys. So, yeah, Sage Northcutt, Thibault Gouti. I think that this is a really good, solid fight for Sage Northcutt here, personally. I think that Thibault Gouti, I'm still surprised he's in the UFC, but he came off 3 losses in a row, and then he followed it up with a round 1 TKO of Andrew Holbrook at UFC Rotterdam, I think it was last year. Andrew Holbrook doesn't have a chin and doesn't take a shot very well. We've seen that. He gets hit hard, he goes down. He lost to Chad Dupreez, he lost to Olivier Aubin-Mercier, he lost to Timo Packalén. So when this guy loses, he gets finishes. So, you know, Northcutt might be a decent play in DraftKings depending on what the odds come out and what he's priced at. I think he can stop him personally. What I liked from Sage in the fight with Michel Quinones, now he's went to Team Alpha Male and he's went there full time. He's moved to Sacramento, where he hasn't got his dad controlling him every move now that he's not in Texas. Uriah Faber has took him under his wing and he looked very composed. He countered brilliantly against Quinones. Anytime that Quinones would throw a leg kick, he would counter with a 1-2, sometimes 3 shots, and those shots would land. Also, on top of that, he added, he's always had this, but he added in some takedowns. Just looked a far more confident and composed fighter than we've seen before. I still think there's going to be times where you can fade Sage Northcutt personally. I just don't think this is the spot. I think that Sage Northcutt is going to catch Thibault with those quick hands, that very, very quick speed that he has. And I'm just not. I think that this is another one of these showcase matchups that the UFC are putting together. We've seen it last week with Tai Tuivasa. We've seen it the week before with Polyana Viana. This is another one here to get Sage a win. When he faces these type of guys like Enrique Marin, where he nearly got caught in that with the submission. He came through it and he won those fights. The Cody Fister fight, he came through that even though the ref was a little bit odd in that one and put the fight back to the feet when it should have really stayed on the mat there. So I like the fact he's at Team Alpha Male, personally. He's going to be training with good guys, your Josh Emmett's, Darren Elkins, Andre Fili. The guys are on that camp as a whole at the minute is doing really, really well. So he's around a confident camp. And guys with, like, I think Josh Emmett fights next week in Orlando. So yeah, really good camp. I just think this is a showcase fight. I think he's going to be too fast and he's going to catch Thibault Gouti. I think there's a betting opportunity if the odds are right here for Sage Northcutt. I'm looking into that when the odds get released, but we'll wait and see. I'm going to pick Sage Northcutt. I'm going to pick him via TKO in round number 1. I think he's going to, those fast hands are just going to stun Gouti and he's going to follow up with ground and pound and win the fight from there. So Sage Northcutt, round 1, TKO there. Welterweight division, Thiago Alves against the debuting Curtis Millender. This is an interesting matchup to me because I'm not sure. Like, Thiago Alves, sometimes he's hit or miss. I think that fight with Mike Perry I thought was going to be a great fight. Pulled out of that one due to the hurricane situation down in Florida. Then he had the unfortunate circumstance of Zach Cummins slipping, I think it was in the bathtub on weigh-in day, so that fight got scrapped. I think that was going to be a very close fight. I had Zach Cummins winning that fight. He looked very impressive last time out against Patrick Cote, where he just kind of pieced Cote up. Cote was on the retirement kind of mind thoughts at that time. Mindset, that's the word I'm trying to look for, mindset, where I think he was probably going to retire, win or lose in that fight. And Alves, I thought, turned back the clock a little bit and showed his prowess with his striking. Curtis Millender is a guy that I knew a few years ago. He fought in Bellator and lost to a couple of guys earlier on there, where he got hit with, I think it was Fernando Gonzalez stopped in the 3rd round, Brennan Ward stopped him. But he did win he did win like a fight in there, and then he went into LFA, and he's shown vast improvements with his striking. I mean, he KO'd Matthew Franco, Nick Barnes, where that head kick gets up so quick, and he can put people down with it. I just think that somebody like Thiago Alves has seen these kind of guys before. I'm sure he's been around for the longest time. I think Curtis Millender is actually a live dog in this one. I think if he can stick around early, I think Alves will start quick. and I think he can come into it in the later rounds. But I just think that Thiago Alves is going to do just a little bit more across the 3 rounds to win this one. But I think, honestly, I think Curtis Millender, if you've got a few quid lying around, if he's the dog in this one, which I fully expect him to be, I think it wouldn't be a bad bet actually to bet on the newcomer here. But I think Thiago Alves is just a little bit more refined. Millender has a reach advantage, he's a bigger guy here, so that's something to kind of keep an eye on late in the fight, or even from the start of the fight. He's just a bigger dude. I want to pick Curtis, but my head's saying Thiago Alves, so I'm going to go Thiago Alves via decision in that one there. Lightweight division with James Vick against Mazaran Duba, Francisco Trinaldo. Seeing some people saying some things about James Vick, which is a little bit, I don't think it's factual, put it that way. He lost to one southpaw, so he's going to lose to this guy because he's a southpaw. He's lost to one guy, he got caught by one guy, he's chin suspect. He got caught by one guy, so I don't understand where that's coming from. Now, Trinaldo is I think his strength's a little bit overrated. I think his striking's a little bit overrated. I think he's serviceable. Very decent and all of them, but I don't think he's got big power, and I don't think that lasts all that long. Once he fades, the strength just disappears from him. And but in saying that, he is a very solid fighter, and a fighter I love watching. He always gives you exciting fights, and he always gives his all. The guy's been around for a long time. He's like 40 years old, I think, now. So, but he's against the guy here in James Vick. Now, the thing with James Vick, he is a taller guy. So Trinaldo's going to want it. I think what his game plan will be is to work his striking to push James Vick against the clinch. I think he will underestimate just how strong James Vick is. I see this fight kind of similar to the Glico-Franca fight, where he tried to do that, and Vick kind of wore him out with his strength, and then he started using that long, powerful jab to really put it on Glico-Franca. And Franca was a big dude, so Trinaldo here, he's nowhere near as big as what Franca is. I can guarantee you that. But like I say, I think his strength will deplete after those 5 minutes. I think once his cardio goes and his strength goes, James Vick is going to start picking at him. And I think that's where he has to be careful with. I think James Vick just needs to be careful the first 5 minutes. I actually saw the odds in this. Trinaldo was plus 185 over here in the UK. I think the odds are a little bit off in that. I think it should be a little bit closer, but I do think that James Vick should be a favourite nonetheless. James Vick, people were writing him off against Joseph Duffy, and like, I'm a Joseph Duffy fan, but I thought he had the. I just thought, I had a feeling he was going to win that fight. I thought it was going to be close. I didn't expect him to knock him out, but once he got the opportunity, he stopped the fight with some really nice striking. Got taken down a couple of times. It's something that James Vick's a little bit suspect to. He can get taken down, but he's a guy you have to be careful with. He's got submission skills. He's a very long-languid guy. But predominantly, he's a solid all-round fighter, but he's boxing. He comes from a boxing background, really solid striking, and I expect that to be the case here. Once Trinaldo, I think the first round will be close. I think Vick can win that first round. I think once it goes into 2 and 3, he can start knocking the head back at Trinaldo, and I think Trinaldo, I don't think he's a quitter, but I think if you get him in a position where you can get him out of there, you can get him out of there. Do I see him getting Trinaldo out of there? I think he can, and if he does, I think it's going to be late on. So I'm going to go James Vick via TKO in round number 3, and I'm fairly confident in that pick. It'll probably be in my confident picks there. Seen a lot of people betting on Trinaldo though. With the odds the way they are, I don't think it's a bad bet, but I think it's, in my opinion, it's going to be a losing bet. But if I don't bet James Vick in some capacity, I wish you all the best and I hope you cash. Co-main event of the night, we have Derrick, the Black Beast Lewis, against Marcin Tybura. Interesting fight. Derrick Lewis, I've never really been sold on him. I think there's a lot of fights there where he could have ultimately lost, and he came through, but not looking great. And he's talking about retirement. I thought he'd left and he's came back, and he had a debacle against Verdun where he had to pull out the day of the fight. But if you go back, the Roy Nelson fight, he was a guy that I thought he lost that fight. Personally, I thought Roy Nelson won that one. Shamil Abdurakhimov, he lost 3 rounds very easily. Very, very easily. Shamil was winning that fight until he got caught in that dominant mount that if Derrick Lewis gets you in, you are screwed, because you don't get that guy off you, and the guy's got so much power it takes a minuscule shot and you're out. And then Travis Browne, he took some massive, massive shots in that fight, and especially body shots. He went to the body, and you could see that that's a soft spot of Derrick Lewis where you can attack him. Mark Hunt showed that as well, that you can attack the body of this guy. The one thing that I like with Marcin Tybura is his kicking game. A really solid kicking game where he can attack the body and can hurt you from there. And this is one of the places I think he can get at Derrick Lewis. Now, in that fight with Fabricio Werdum that he lost, I thought he gave a great account of himself, I'm being honest. I thought Werdum would find a way to get him out of there. He stuck around 25 minutes with one of the best heavyweights in the world. I thought he was outclassed a little bit, but he stuck it out. And I think he's made so much improvement since he's come into the UFC. Just me looking at this here, if Derrick Lewis can't find that big shot, and if Derrick Lewis can't find his way into the top position in that fight on the mount and is landing ground and pound, I don't see him outstriking Marcin Tybura. I think Tybura is the better, more accurate striker, and in my opinion that will win him rounds. Now, I'm still on. I'm thinking about betting Tybura. The odds are fairly favourable over here in the UK, so I'm still waiting a little bit to see the other odds just to see what's going to go down. But there's a good chance I bet Marcin Tybura. And if you follow me in Carpateka Bet with me tips, you will see if I make that bet or not. But I like Marcin Tybura to win across 3 rounds. Potentially could stop him if he gets him with one of those body kicks. I think he could shut down Derrick Lewis. But Derrick Lewis is fighting in Texas, so he might raise his game a little bit here. I just think the better fighter is Marcin Tybura, in my opinion. So I'm going to pick Tybura via decision in that one there. And the main event of the night, we have the returning Cowboy Donald Cerrone against the Hawaiian Warrior that is Yancy Medeiros. Now, I've been going back and forth on this one. I made my podcast a couple hours ago where I went with the guy where literally in the last 2 hours I watched another fight of someone else, one of the other guys in this main event here, and I've swapped my pick around. But honestly, I'm not confident. I don't think it's a fight that... I'm definitely not going to bet this fight, I can guarantee you that. But it's a fight I've been flip-flopping on. Donald Cerrone, I think to me he has clearly made declines in his game. But in saying that, he's lost to decent guys. I'm still not 100% sold on Darren Till, but he got caught with a shot there and got taken out. Jorge Masvidal pieced him up, and him and Robbie Lawler had a really good knock between them. So he's losing to decent guys. Still think he should have took longer off than the 5 months that has passed since he lost to Darren Till. Like a really great technical striker, but I think there is vulnerabilities there. He's open to left hands. He's always been open to southpaw fighters where he can get hit with body kicks. Now that's something I think that Medeiros will try and target a little bit, because we have seen Donald Cerrone hit to the body and kind of fold a little bit, but Yancy Medeiros is the exact same as that as well. He's been hurt to the body numerous times throughout his run at 155. I thought Alex Oliveira hurt him to the body in that classic back at UFC 219. So both guys, I think, are vulnerable to the body. That's something I think Donald Cerrone should attack. Low kicks and body kicks, and look to keep it technical. Yancy's going to want to come in here and make this a war and swing leather. He swings that left hand like an absolute bat, like he did against Eric Silva. Now, in that fight with Alex Oliveira, I thought he was losing that fight personally before he got that stoppage in the 3rd round. In the fight with Eric Silva, I think Eric Silva was actually beating him. I think the first round remember looking at the scorecards I looked up today, Eric Silva won the first round against Yancy Medeiros, and in the second round he was piecing up Yancy a little bit as well before getting hit with a massive clubbing left hand, where I think that the ref was a little bit quick to step in, but he has to protect the fighters. I think that Yancy he's going to make this a war, and I think his output could. It's hard here. Like, I'm really struggling with the pick. Initially, on the podcast earlier on, I picked Donald Cerrone. I've flopped over to Yancy Medeiros. I think it's a dog or pass kind of fight. I think at some aspect, Donald's going to get hurt and he's not going to recover. Where if Yancy gets hurt, I think he can recover. It seems to be a run occurrence where he gets hurt in fights and he can stick around. And that's something I think could happen here. Like I say, I think Cerrone, some of his game plan should be low kicks and body kicks, try and wear him down through that. And I think Medeiros just has to try and keep it nice and technical if he can, and try and keep up with Cerrone on that technical striking. And eventually, once it gets into a little bit wilder brawl, he could catch Cerrone with something. Like I say, initially in my pick, I've always really sided with Donald Cerrone in this matchup. Plus the fact that Yancy Medeiros, it's only 2 months removed from that fight with Alex Oliveira, and that was a complete and utter war. Might regret this one personally, but when I look back at it in the last few hours, I'm thinking it has to be a dog or pass type fight, and I think the odds are off actually in Yancy Medeiros. I think he's plus 140 over here in the UK now, so there's some value to that, definitely. Like I say, I won't be betting it. I'm not confident in the pick, but I'm going to go with the dog in Yancy Medeiros. It's a toss-up fight. But yeah, I'm going to pick Yancy Medeiros. But I've got a feeling Cowboy's going to get it done. So if Cowboy goes on and win, I'm sure next week he'll come and say, I should have picked Donald Cerrone, I should have stuck with my initial feeling. But dog or pass, I'm going to go Yancy Medeiros. So I'm going to pick him via TKO. I think if he wins this fight, I don't think he wins over the decision. I think he wins inside the distance. So TKO, maybe round 3, round 4. So that's my picks for UFC Fight Night 126 from Austin, Texas. I'll be back next week for UFC on Fox, Josh Emmett against Jeremy Stephens. Until then, enjoy the fight card come around this weekend, and all the best with your bets, all the best with your picks. Let me know who you're picking down below, and I will see you all next week. Take care.